Hello, everybody. Welcome. Roses like investigator. So it's Saturday night, 10:53. It's Saturday night. And here I am. It's Saturday night, 10:53. And here I am. And here I am. Okay. So guys, there was a lot of discussing, And yesterday, it's funny. I think it's part of it, right? That sometimes I think I get overwhelmed with all the news, as you all know. So I didn't make a video because there's so much happening. Sometimes it's overwhelming, and I think for me, I should pay limited attention, even though I don't really. I do keep track of news. So let's get started. I like to ask for protection, a beautiful ray of light coming on top of my head as I breathe in. I feel my lungs as I breathe out. I create a circle. I create a circle. I step into it. I step into it. I feel protected. I feel connected. I like to ask that information come only from the highest sources. That I create the good and out of the good, and so does. Okay. So where do I start? Where do I start? Okay. So two things I want to talk about today. The escalation of Russia into NATO territory. Okay, so this happened. Was it Thursday? I think it was, or Wednesday. I remember. And then now they're like getting, they're becoming more. I don't say crazy, but I'll tell you more missiles into Poland. I think Romania and Lithuania, at least Moldova maybe. So we're gonna talk about it. Really, yeah, I'll make face. I feel like it's a good sign when I can make face because that means it's not as heavy. Because there was a few days when I couldn't. I was serious. No, 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 notorious, notorious. Dun, dun. Okay. All right. So, but the other thing, of course, to talk about is the whole Charlie Kirk situation, and Kathy Beale she texted me today. She was saying how interesting they took the body, right? So there's no autopsy, right? Oh, I find it interesting. No, really, come on. If they really wanted to find the details. Guys, by the way, there's a problem here. It's flipped, but see, that was a big makeup mistake. It should go up, not down. This one goes down, this one goes up. But just because this is a makeup channel that also does some psychic things, but just so you know. All right, but okay, so let's right. So that's very interesting here, and then it turns out that the guy is in fact associated with the Nick something uh Fuentes. It is so weird because he has a Latin name. So the guy one is more right wing than the other. Okay. But still, honestly, this I saw a video and I honestly I could not picture. There were some people saying that there's another shooter that they think the shooter that it sounds very complicated. The point is, there's all these conspiracy theories. I think the bottom line, what everybody seems to agree on, really, is that Trump is somehow involved. That this is right. I feel like it's the whole transporting of the body on the vice president's airplane, right? There's something about it, just seems very strange. Okay. It's very much seems planned. Sorry to say. And and his reaction, remember they were like, oh, it's a leftist. It's a leftist. It's a we're gonna go after them. That's what they want. That's their dream. But no, of course it always is the right winger. And then Trump is like, not even talking about it anymore. Right? No, no. Oh, that's right. They did. Okay, bye. He's like, oh yeah, by the way, he literally said the ball. They're fixing up the ballroom over here. You know that? That's it. That's how he pivoted. It's saying because they failed to cause the commotion they wanted. And everybody's still talking about the Epstein files. Okay. Okay. And then, all right. So, guys, I'll be right back. I'm going to grab something. I'll be right back. So, okay. So then I'm here. I've got some crystals. What else? What happened? You know, it's funny whenever I asked, not funny, but I asked about this whole thing. I always see the Kirk person on the other side be like, wow, he was just shocked. It was no accident. And he was not alone. They did not, did not work alone. And I really think this guy was manipulated somehow into showing up at a certain time. And, okay. I don't think that uh, he was alone. I don't think it was just a one person thing. And okay, are we going to see this coming out about this so-called first it was a fake assassination and then this saying yes. Um and uh and also, guys, I wanted to say something that feels good to me. Okay, which is that when the day when that came out, that happened. Remember, I think it was the day when I was just like I was serious. I couldn't. It was too much. The intensity of it all, that thing happening. But a few days later, have you noticed how this whole thing has crumbled? Right? The media is sticking to it, but the power of this has crumbled in the sense of like the ability for them to frame the narrative quickly. It has escaped. Okay. So just to tell you that vibrationally, things are happening. And I still don't think that he will win in the end with all of this. So there are his attempts to create the so-called civil war or whatever. Okay. They want excuses to arrest people, to create terror, right? But I still see him being like apprehended and like it's a guys, we're getting to the situation where they are going to be exposed. There's no way out of this. Okay. And that's the path that we're still headed in that direction. I feel strongly about it. Okay. And and also I wanted to say that I watched, as you guys know, I don't know anything about astrology. I find it very interesting, especially when it comes to the collective. And I was watching some videos. Of course, I watched Kathy and Louise, Kathy, professional Aquarian, Louise at Cosmic Owl. But I honestly sometimes I forget because since I don't know anything about astrology, I kind of it's like I have to listen many times. But I watched this video by this man named Rick Levine, who is his like very slow, like he goes day by day of September. And it was really interesting because he shows how September is, especially towards the 21st. He said that it's one of, I think he said something like the most dynamic aspects, and yet there's so few, no, most dynamic transits, but there's so few aspects. He said, meaning there's very little interaction. So it may feel for us that things are stuck, which is kind of like how a lot of us feel right now. But eventually it will all go forward. But the thing that I found interesting is that he used a term that I think Kathy had also used before, which was that around the 23rd, starting with the 21st, it could be a change of government. So I find it very, very interesting. Okay. And I think it's like expecting, we are all kind of expecting that things are going to get even worse as far as like lawlessness and attempts to deflect And what I find most interesting is that they're taking so much risk because they must know they are out of, like, running out of options, right? Why would they do something like so blatant like that? It's because they know they don't really have true power, right? And I've said this before. If you're a person who grew up in a dictatorship, Brazil had a dictatorship for decades, military dictatorship. And so when you look at pretty much all the countries that have dictatorships, what you have is a military that complies with it. The military is perhaps the most important part of it. If the military does not comply, you can't do the level of repression that you need. Even though if you look at the Supreme Court and the voting rights and such, they have oppressed, they have stole. I think this definition of democracy, right, in that sense, is very compromised. But the U.S. hasn't gone to the level that where most dictatorships go, which is to arrest the opponents. It happens. Okay, so sometimes kill, right? So it's not, and I don't think it's going to happen here at this very moment. Okay, so, but it's they're, I don't know as I say this, they're planning, right? But I feel like I was speaking to somebody today, and I was saying that this is the time to. I was actually was Kathy maybe I texting her, cocoon and take care of ourselves and have limited exposure because they're manipulating. A lot of this is manipulating, and the whole story. Whenever I see like people say, "Oh, it's the Mossad that did it," no, Mossad has bigger fish to fry. Okay, right now, um, it's Trump. Okay, is what's happening. All right, and we'll have to keep our eyes on the prize, and that's it. Okay, and anything that they say that they do, I assume it's always a lie or a manipulation of some sort. Okay, all right. So this is the moment. Okay, and again, I've been doing a lot of the meditations or looking forward because this time, guys, really is a time when things feel a bit stuck on a personal level. So time to get rid of stuff. I'm struggling, trying as much as possible to get rid of stuff, to organize, to do the simple things, deal with the simple things of life, because there will be a moment when things will return to normal or to the regular speed. And when that does, we're prepared. Because what can be very frustrating is when like, given what everything is going on, people, like we get like, oh my God, I can't believe you get frustrated. That's very disruptive, very yeah, it doesn't accomplish much, right? When we get like that. So this is it. So let's see. I know people. There's a strange reaction by the bride, the widow of Charlie, but I'm not surprised because that there's so much grifting on that in that world. But it's telling me she was paid, Rosie. She was paid to not fight it, to kind of keep, and she was promised a bigger role or in somewhere to keep talking about it. Okay, so so that's the story. All right, but let's see anything else. Still see him on the other side, just shocked, shocked, shocked. Um, and that is just because what happens, I think, when we got to the other side is you see the truth for what it is, and how much his rhetoric. And I see that he sees Trump as this like monster, which he is, right? With these eyes like hollow, like, oh, we can use him. We could do, right? There's no limit. There's no limit. And so he is just shocked that in some ways it has enabled this, and he has, right, created this culture of violence in a way or another, right? So, and that I think the saddest part of this is how he was used by others. Like, right? This is what I think shocks me the most is how Trump is willing to sacrifice his own people. Like, it's scary, really, because you would think he would defend them, but no, they're all disposable. And of course, look at the GOP, how they scam their own voters and use the whole like, oh, trans, oh, it was trans person. Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm sure it was. No, it was not. Okay, so this is it. But uh, having said this, there's this other bigger geopolitical issue going on. There's also the Epstein files. But as you guys know, I am a big believer that the downfall has to do with the military and that things are moving in a direction that is very it's not going to be good for Trump. Okay, so let's go into this. Let's go into this whole thing about it because I think, guys, this is very telling. Okay, so let me actually, it's funny I haven't written. Let's see. Okay, so I was listening to several of these war channels that I told you I listened to, like the Enforcer, Combat Veteran. Like there's a few of them I listen to from time to time, and there's a lot of alarming developments that happened today. Okay, so let me actually just give you the headlines. Okay. Okay, so Romania reports Russian drone in its airspace as Poland scrambles jets again. Zelensky says drone incursions are an obvious expansion of the war by Russia as neighboring countries deploy air defenses. Romania became the latest NATO member to report its drone incursion into its airspace, with Poland scrambling aircraft in response to fresh Russian drone strikes just over the border in Ukraine. Romania's defense ministry said on Saturday its airspace had been breached by a drone during a Russian attack on infrastructure in neighboring Ukraine. Romania scrambled two F-16 fighter jets on late Saturday to monitor the situation after the strikes, the ministry said in statements. Okay, so there's more. I saw that there's a missile. This is according to this channel I was listening to. Let's see. All right, it's no. On top of that, I mean, and this is actually a live stream, but you can just see the let me just share this. Okay, so Russia deploys SRBM missiles, Romania breached by drone attack. Russia has deployed Iskander missiles in Kaliningrad, which are believed to be aimed at Warsaw and Vilnius. Vilnius is the capital of Lithuania. These missiles appeared armed and ready to fire at a moment's notice towards NATO countries. Russian drones entered Romanian airspace hours ago and were chased down by Romanian F-16s. Their drones were lost over the airspace and the wreckage was found later. Polish forces are flooding into the Suwalki Gap as Polish citizens volunteer by the thousands to join the Polish armed forces in response to recent Russian drone attacks. Germany is also preparing a rapid deployment of forces in response to recent Russian. Oh, no. Germany is also preparing a rapid deployment of forces into Lithuania at the outbreak of war. Russian vehicles in Grodno have been spotted with new offensive markings, suggesting this may become an invasion of NATO. The U.S. has moved more for Puerto Rico against Venezuela and signed a tuna boat. Come on. See, now this is interesting, right? You see what's happening. And what is happening is Trump is creating this, like, I'll just call it ridiculous Venezuela bullshit. Okay, when Russia is attacking our allies. Okay. Now, what I want to know here is, and I, guys, as it happens, I separate the thing, and then I don't like, I separate the news. Okay, Trump. So Trump dismissed, right? Let's see here. And okay, now we see here the game that Trump is playing. So because I did see what I was going to show you, and I don't need to show you because you probably have seen it. When asked about the attacks, what Russia, oh no, it may have been an accident. He said about, right, Trump said about Russia, and and then and he's saying this. Okay, let me share now, because what's interesting is here. Trump tells NATO members they must move first on Russian sanctions over Ukraine. So, of course, he's refusing to do something, right? It's like he's playing the time. Oh, in 2 weeks, right? I'm ready to major sanctions on Russia when NATO nations have agreed and started to do the same thing. And when NATO state nations stop buying oil from Russia. Okay, so Trump has been under pressure from some in his own party to increase sanctions after his efforts at diplomacy stalled. Meanwhile, Russia has stepped up aggression, including this week when multiple Russian drones entered airspace of NATO member Poland. Okay. So here's the situation, right? And then he creates this shooting situation, and then and that's where we are now, in the Venezuela thing. So what I think is going to happen, right, is like, I mean, no, let me backtrack a little. What's interesting is to consider what is Russia's motive, because they are not as strong as entire NATO force combined. So it looks like they're betting on the NATO alliance being weaker than it is. And I also feel like they're pushing for this moment. And that's what I think is the happy moment for us. The moment when Trump is going to have to side with Russia, because they're creating a lot of they're creating aggression, which means that there has to be a response. They're begging for, right? They're provoking. They're going into the territory, which would normally just mean we have to shoot, we have to shoot back, we have to do whatever, right? NATO. And yet Trump, it's like Trump is obviously pro Russia. Is he going to allow them to do something? Do they need his permission to do something? Right? Russians seem to act with a confidence that suggests they think Trump is gonna like be on their side when the big battle comes. And that's when I think, again, the moment is gonna flip in our side. Okay. So for us, this is gonna benefit us, meaning that he's gonna have to be removed. Because don't you think what Russia is doing is they're escalating and they're acting as if they're truly going to attack. And yes, it's shocking, right? That Rutte hasn't done anything, and they want to avoid possible escalation, blah blah blah. But if things are going, if you look at what Putin is doing, and how Trump, right, how he feels about Russia, it seems that Putin is batting on NATO to be weak, and then for some sort of separation to happen, so that they can essentially take over Europe. He can take over Europe, right? That's what it. You have to look at the situation for what it is, what he's doing, not what he's saying, right? I mean, they're doing both. They're acting and doing this thing. So then does it make sense, guys? So then I think it's going to come to a head. And if we look at the astrology that says that, like, the 24th is the day when Kamala is supposed to speak, is the day when there will be big shifts. And astrologers have called this a change in power. So does it make sense? That to me is the narrative, I feel like. So, but this is, having told you all of this, now we need to ask, what is next on this? Is Russia really going to attack, to, let's say, send a missile? Because there's a mix. You see what's happening, right? They're going to the airspace. They're doing this. They're creating a pre-war. Like they are digging for war. So what is going to happen? Here, please, spirits, tell us, because it's a serious situation. And guys, for one, I know Russia loves to say, "Oh, be careful of the World War III." I'm like, you know what? Whatever it takes to get rid of these people. I don't. I'm not. I'm sorry. I'm not afraid of them. Really, I think we should confront them and stop the bully is going to continue bullying until you put a stop to it. Okay, it's to them. So I'm not worried really in that sense. I think if it's some sort of war breaks out, it's a good thing, because whatever, doesn't make sense. We have to stop this. Real war doesn't make sense. Not like, oh, I shot down a tuna boat in Venezuela, right? So, okay, and of course they also want to have some sort of war with China. That's the other thing they want to do. And this is true of, remember that guy else? What was it? They had the guy with a waspy name from the Pentagon that stopped the arms from going to Ukraine. Colby, I think his name is something, Colby something. So anyway, let's ask here, what is next? What is Putin going to do next, and how is NATO going to react? Yeah, I see them sending some sort of missile in the kind of like towards not a specific area, but going up, but crossing. And then I do again see the NATO guy and the NATO commander more than I see that Rutte has given him the okay to do it already. If they cross with more, there's a specific line, then they will attack like the areas that are sending the missiles. Okay, they will blow it up. So is there going to be a war? And I see, wow, and I do see that NATO pressing that button and Trump being like, wait, but we have to help, we have to help Russia. And that's when he's like, that's what I think. Does it make sense? It just comes together in this sense. And I don't think the military is going to be okay with that. I was like, and that's what Putin is pushing, because he knows how to control Trump, right? And I think it has something to do with the Putin piles, but I think he has everything that Putin piles has on Trump and more. And that's just how he manipulates him. Okay, so, and I see that also, guys. If you follow Peter Thiel and all those people, they are like, they want some sort of like massive war, world war. They want total. I'm not kidding. This is what they want. So they want conflict. They want the current world order to be disrupted or whatever, right? Because in their minds they're gonna own that. We don't know everything. Everything is destroyed, and there's like nothing in this world. People are like starving, and then they're like, wow, Peter Thiel is really big. He's a powerful man, huh? Yeah, I think I'm gonna be not. I think I get it now. I get it, huh? That's what they're fantasizing, but I think the reality is going to be a little different. And somehow I feel like the move, I think I do see NATO eventually moving on that. Spitting. And it's not going to end well. Okay. It's not going to end well. But, and guys, I have to tell you, I really think even Kamala could delay her talk. And honestly, I prefer that she does, because the situation is extremely volatile, right? And they will try anything. This is a thing, anything to make the country look somewhere else. Like, don't look at the NATO thing. Like, don't look at Putin, me helping Putin. They want to take over the whole, do all of it. But I think he's gonna be caught before. I really do. But still, I'm saying all of this just to remind you to be, to kind of take time off from television, go out, do other things, because they're gonna, all of their powers of propaganda and disinformation and emotional manipulation, it's going to happen more and more until the whole thing collapses. And so it's only going to get worse. But you have to hold on to I hold on to this. And I also feel like, yes, people say, oh, it's the Epstein files is going to take. I still think that it's the Epstein files alone are not going to do anything, unfortunately. I think there has to be some action. And I don't think action is going to come from Congress or Supreme Court because they're in his favor in a way or another, right? So in the gap, in the power struggle and in this gap that is happening, right, between Trump and JD Vance and the whole NATO, Russia's attack on NATO, is something is going to happen that will benefit the world, right? Because it's very clear what is going on here. Okay. And yeah, and some for some reason I see Dick Cheney. I always talk about it. Dick Cheney has some plans, He knows. No, really, he does know because um plans were like they were executed on 9/11, right? Like in terms of like the emergency, what happens in the US when we're under attack. Saying it tells me here, Rosie, remember all enemies, foreign and domestic. So, I see John McCain and then he shows me this like a movie, and the movie is like the army. It's like the military defending Washington as there's this operation going to remove that off. And I saw some news that it was that Chinese people from Chinese origin or something are forbidden from working at NASA. And I'm thinking there's a whole lot of actual Russians working in the White House. And what about that? You know what I'm saying? It's not that I'm saying that China is like, oh, they're so sweet. I think we had a collaborative relationship with China for a long time. And you know what I think the trigger was that China said no to Facebook. And ever since, and Peter Thiel was on the board of Facebook, right? And ever since then, things have escalated because back in those days, they wanted to get into China. They were praising China, those people. And now they're, oh, China. Oh, no, I don't like China. I don't like China. We're going to go get China. Oh, yeah. But the problem is Russia. Okay. And no matter what, as I know, we're like, oh, even if China somehow supports Russia, whatever, it's Russia and Putin, period. It's not the main core problem is not China, it's Russia. Okay. I don't keep saying this, but that's even if they are occasional allies, China is so much more powerful than Russia has so much more money. There's no comparison. Okay. So I hope I did not share too many right news, but this is what I feel like things may escalate until to the point of release. Okay, and we're going to have a release, but it is going to get worse until it gets better. But I do think the worst means that we're going to have Russia really essentially attacking NATO eventually attacking back, and while this happens, trash could suffer something. Right? He could be removed because he works for Russia, right? And that's what I think it is. So essentially, but until like I feel like until it happens, until it goes, then it's gonna get right. Does it make sense? So prepare, take time off, take breaks, pray, send healing to yourself and to people you know. Okay. All right. So this is it turned out to be a monologue. A monologue. Oh, and as I say this, I see an image of Kamala. She's telling me, Rosie, I'll be okay. Don't worry. No, it's like nobody knows where I am, she says, because they're very worried about her. I mean, we know that, right? So we know that they work here. But I don't think anything's going to happen to her. But she does not want to go in public. She definitely does not want to do anything like that in public because she could be martyred, right? In the sense of that they know that she's the real winner, and she's the threat because of that. Okay, but hold on to keep the faith and stick to the lights, and we will see another. We will see. We'll turn a page. I feel it. I feel it. Okay. All right. So have a good night. I'll see you later, alligators. Bye. Bye.